Have you ever wondered why so many people never make it to their 85th birthday, even when modern medicine promises us longer lives than ever before? The truth is, what steals years from our lives after 60 isn't usually a sudden illness or bad luck. It's often hidden in the little habits we think are harmless. New research shows that 73% of those who die before 85 have a handful of daily routines in common. Routines most doctors simply chalk up to normal aging. But I've met some of the healthiest, most vibrant 90-year-olds you could imagine, and they all share something remarkable. They avoided 5 silent, deadly habits that slip past most of us. Today, I want to gently pull back the curtain on these 5 dangers and show you the surprising changes that can add years, maybe even decades, to your life. I'll share 3 easy tests you can do right at home, solutions approved by doctors that can work in as little as 30 days, and the most powerful longevity secret shared by nearly every centenarian. If you care about living not just longer, but better, I invite you to stay with me, and perhaps share this with someone you love. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 1. Sedentary lifestyle, sitting too much. In neighborhoods all across America, you'll find folks like Sandra, a grandmother whose days seemed, on the surface, to reflect what most of us would call healthy living. At 68, Sandra prided herself on starting every morning with a brisk, 30-minute walk. She would lace up her shoes, greet the neighbors with a friendly wave, and watch the sun spill gold across the quiet streets. She ate her vegetables, took her vitamins, and even played a little with her grandchildren when they stopped by. To anyone looking in, Sandra was a shining example of how to age well. But there was a problem quietly taking root in Sandra's routine, a problem so common that nearly everyone over 60 faces it, and yet so invisible that few realize the risk until it's too late. After her morning walk, Sandra would come home and settle into her favorite chair. She read the newspaper from cover to cover, then worked through her daily crossword puzzle. After lunch, she'd spend a couple of hours in front of the television, catching up on the shows she'd recorded. Sometimes she did crafts at her kitchen table or chatted with friends on the phone, always sitting, always still. By the end of the day, Sandra had logged more than 10 hours of sitting, not including the time she spent in the car or at dinner. This pattern, so ordinary and so widespread, is what experts now call a sedentary lifestyle, a way of living where most of the day is spent seated or reclining. The American Journal of Epidemiology has found that seniors who sit for 8 or more hours a day increase their risk of dying by 60%. It's a shocking statistic, but one that resonates with anyone who has watched friends or loved ones slow down after retirement, only to find themselves beset by a host of health problems. You might think, as Sandra did, that a daily walk is enough to cancel out the risks of sitting. But this is where the danger lies. Research reveals that a single bout of exercise, no matter how earnest or energetic, cannot undo the damage of being inactive for the rest of the day. Imagine, for a moment, a lifelong smoker who takes a few deep breaths of fresh mountain air. It may feel good, but it doesn't erase years of damage. Our bodies, especially as we grow older, are built to move throughout the day. Not just in isolated bursts, but in a constant ebb and flow of standing, stretching, walking, and shifting. After 60, our bodies begin to change in ways we might not even notice at first. Metabolism naturally slows down, sometimes by 2 or 3% each year. Circulation isn't as efficient, and muscles, if left unused, begin to weaken faster than before. What might feel merely uncomfortable at 40, stiff legs, a sore back, becomes genuinely dangerous at 70, when inactivity can lead to blood clots, reduced blood flow to the brain, and increased risk of diabetes. Sandra's wake-up call came not from a single moment, but from a simple home test suggested by her doctor. She was asked to sit in a sturdy chair, cross her arms over her chest, and try to stand up and sit down 5 times in a row without using her hands or relying on momentum. To her surprise and frustration, she struggled to complete the test. Each attempt left her more breathless, her legs trembling beneath her. The realization hit hard. All those hours of sitting had quietly chipped away at her strength and independence. The science behind this is clear. Prolonged sitting causes blood to pool in the legs, increasing the risk of dangerous clots by as much as 300%. It disrupts the body's ability to regulate insulin, sending blood sugar levels on a roller coaster that accelerates the path to diabetes. Most alarming of all, it can reduce blood flow to the brain by as much as 20%, hastening the onset of memory problems and cognitive decline. In short, sitting has become, as some doctors say, the new smoking for seniors. But if you see a little of yourself in Sandra's story, take heart, because her story doesn't end there. Once Sandra understood the risks, she made a simple but powerful change to her daily routine. She adopted what her doctor called the 50-10 rule. For every 50 minutes she spent sitting, she made it a point to stand up and move for 10 minutes. It didn't have to be strenuous, marching in place during television commercials, doing gentle leg lifts while on the phone, or simply walking around the house to water her plants. She even got herself a standing desk converter so she could do her crossword puzzles while on her feet. At first, Sandra needed reminders. She set a timer on her phone to buzz every 50 minutes, gently nudging her to move. Over time, those little bursts of activity became a habit, woven seamlessly into her day. The changes were gradual, but unmistakable. Within 3 months, Sandra could complete the sit-to-stand test 10 times with ease. Her energy soared, her blood sugar stabilized, and her doctor remarked on her improved circulation. Most importantly, Sandra felt like herself again, strong, capable, and independent. For many seniors, the hardest part of breaking free from a sedentary lifestyle isn't the physical challenge. It's recognizing the pattern in the first place. So many of us grew up in an era where hard work meant physical labor, and retirement was seen as a well-earned rest. But times have changed. Today, rest can easily slip into routine inactivity, especially when health issues or mobility challenges make movement more difficult. If you're wondering where you stand, take a few minutes to think honestly about your day. How many hours do you spend sitting, reading, watching TV, knitting, using the computer, or driving? The first step to change is awareness. You might be surprised by your answer. And remember, it's not about giving up your favorite activities, but finding creative ways to weave more movement into the fabric of your day. Try the sit-to-stand test at home. Sit in a sturdy chair, cross your arms, and see if you can rise and sit 5 times in a row without using your hands. If it's tough, don't feel discouraged. It's simply a starting point, a sign that it's time to add a little more motion to your day. Simple changes can add up to a lifetime of difference. Set a timer for every 50 minutes and stand up to stretch, march in place, or do a few wall push-ups. Take phone calls standing, walk around the house during commercial breaks, or invite a friend for a stroll instead of a sit-down chat. If mobility is a challenge, even shifting positions or doing seated exercises can make a difference. Sandra's story is a reminder that it's never too late to reclaim your independence and vitality. A few small changes, made consistently, can restore strength, boost mood, and open up years of healthy, active living. Remember, our bodies are designed for movement, no matter our age. Every step, every stretch, every moment you choose to rise from your chair is a gift to yourself, a promise of more years, more freedom, and more memories with the people you love. And if you find inspiration in Sandra's journey, consider sharing it. You might be surprised at how many friends and family members are quietly facing the same struggle, unaware of the silent risks in their routines. Together, by supporting each other, by reminding and encouraging, we can build a community where movement is a joyful, daily celebration. One that keeps us strong and connected, not just to our bodies, but to life itself. So today, take that first step. Stand up. Move. Let your body remember what it was built for. You might just discover that the journey toward a longer, fuller life begins not with a single dramatic change, but with 1,000 small moments, each one as simple as choosing to rise. 2. Poor sleep habits. There's something almost sacred about the early hours of the morning, the soft hush before sunrise, the stillness that settles over the house. For Carl, those early hours were always the best part of his day. At 72, he prided himself on being an early riser, a habit he'd kept since his days as a young father juggling work and family. Each morning, Carl would quietly slip out of bed before his wife, tiptoe to the kitchen, and brew himself a strong cup of coffee. He liked the feeling of having a head start on the day, believing it kept him sharp, organized, and, perhaps most importantly, independent. But as the years wore on, Carl noticed a change creeping into his mornings. Despite his careful routines and early bedtime, he felt tired, sometimes deeply tired, not just in his body, but in his mind and spirit. He found himself nodding off in his recliner after lunch or struggling to stay awake while reading the evening news. He brushed it off at first, chalking it up to getting older, but the fatigue persisted, clouding his once clear mind and making each day just a bit more difficult to get through. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Carl's story is hardly unique. Across the country, millions of older adults find themselves struggling with sleep in ways they never did before. Some toss and turn for hours before drifting off, while others wake up repeatedly throughout the night, staring at the ceiling as the hours slip by. It's easy to believe, as Carl did, that less sleep is simply part of aging. It's one of the most persistent myths in our culture, that older people need less sleep than younger adults. The truth, however, is startlingly different. Science now tells us that adults over 60 need just as much sleep as those in their 30s and 40s, about 7 to 9 hours each night. What changes with age isn't the need for sleep, but rather the body's ability to get it. As we grow older, our sleep becomes lighter, more fragmented, and harder to maintain. Factors like medications, chronic pain, stress, and changes in our circadian rhythms all conspire to rob us of the deep, restorative sleep we need to heal, remember, and thrive. Carl first began to suspect something was wrong during a routine visit to his doctor. His blood pressure had crept higher, and his memory tests weren't as sharp as they'd been the year before. When his doctor asked about his sleep, Carl admitted he usually got about 5 or 6 hours a night, sometimes less. "I just woke up," he explained, "and I can't get back to sleep. I always thought it was normal." But his doctor shook her head, explaining that this kind of broken, insufficient sleep wasn't harmless. It was, in fact, quietly undermining his health. Sleep, it turns out, is the body's time to repair. During deep sleep, our brains wash themselves clean of toxins, proteins that, if left unchecked, can build up and eventually contribute to diseases like Alzheimer's. The heart and blood vessels repair the microscopic damage caused by a day's worth of stress. The immune system gets its chance to regroup and recharge. When we don't get enough of this healing rest, the effects show up everywhere. Our memory dulls, our mood sours, our bodies grow weaker, and our risk for conditions like heart disease, stroke, and diabetes climbs dramatically. But the real danger isn't just in the amount of sleep, but in its quality. Carl learned this the hard way. Though he believed he was sleeping enough, his wife mentioned he often tossed and turned, sometimes waking her up as he shifted or mumbled in his sleep. Many nights, Carl himself didn't remember how many times he'd woken up, only that he never felt fully rested. These micro-awakenings, as doctors call them, can fragment sleep so badly that the body never enters the deep, restorative stages where healing occurs. Carl's afternoons became a sort of test. By 2 or 3 o'clock, he felt an overwhelming wave of exhaustion, the kind that no cup of coffee could fix. This wasn't just the sleepiness of a long day, but a sign that his body was desperately missing the deep sleep it needed. If you've ever found yourself nodding off in the late afternoon or waking up groggy despite a full night in bed, you might be experiencing the same thing. For many older adults, the next step is often a trip to the pharmacy for over-the-counter sleep aids. But what most people don't realize is that these medications, while they may help you fall asleep, actually disrupt your natural sleep cycles, preventing the deep stages you need most. Over time, they can even make sleep problems worse, creating a cycle of dependency and poor rest that's hard to break. Carl's turning point came when his doctor introduced him to what she called the 3-2-1 rule, a series of simple changes that could make a world of difference for sleep quality, especially in older adults. No large meals 3 hours before bed. No liquids 2 hours before bed. And, perhaps the hardest for Carl, no screens 1 hour before bedtime. But it was the final tip that made the biggest difference. Setting aside 15 minutes each night as a worry window. During this time, Carl would write down anything on his mind, errands, concerns, family matters, and then, quite literally, close the book and put it away for the night. He also learned to pay attention to his sleep environment. Seniors are more sensitive to temperature, so Carl set his bedroom to a cool 66 degrees, pulled blackout curtains to block any stray light, and banished the television from his room. The results weren't instant, but they were remarkable. Within weeks, Carl found himself sleeping more deeply, waking up fewer times during the night, and feeling genuinely refreshed in the morning. His memory improved, his blood pressure stabilized, and that afternoon, fatigue faded away. Many seniors face unique obstacles to good sleep. Medications, chronic pain, and the need to use the bathroom more frequently can all disrupt sleep patterns. Anxiety about health, family, finances, or simply the future can keep the mind racing long after the lights go out. It's important to remember that these challenges are real, but they can be managed with patience and the right strategies. One of the best things Carl did was to talk about his sleep struggles with friends at his local senior center. He was surprised to discover how many others quietly dealt with the same issues. Sharing tips and encouragement, they experimented together. One friend swore by gentle stretches before bed, another recommended a lavender-scented pillow, and someone else suggested listening to soothing music instead of the nightly news. Together, they reminded each other that sleep, like so many things in life, could improve with a little attention and care. So if you find yourself dreading bedtime or waking up more tired than when you went to sleep, remember Carl's journey. Start with small changes. Turn off screens an hour before bed, keep your room cool and dark, and try writing down your worries before you lie down. Avoid large meals and heavy drinking before bed, and talk to your doctor about any medications that might be interfering with your rest. Good sleep isn't just a luxury. It's a foundation for every other part of healthy aging. It keeps the mind sharp, the mood light, the body resilient. And perhaps most importantly, it gives us the energy to enjoy each new day, to spend time with loved ones, and to pursue the activities that make life meaningful. Carl's story, in the end, is a simple one, but it carries a powerful lesson. You're never too old to rediscover the deep, restful sleep your body craves. With patience, a little experimentation, and the support of those around you, it's possible to break free from the patterns of poor sleep that so often sneak up as we grow older. And when you do, you may just find that the days seem brighter, the burdens lighter, and the future, no matter your age, full of promise. 3. Social isolation and loneliness. For most of her life, Rita was never one to sit still. She loved the gentle chaos of family gatherings, the easy laughter over coffee with friends, and the small rituals of belonging that filled her days. Book club on Wednesdays, church on Sundays, a game of cards with the neighbors whenever someone had a birthday or a story to share. She liked to believe that age would never slow her down, that she'd always be part of the tapestry of her community. But after her husband passed away, everything changed. At first, it was the big things she noticed. The quiet house, the empty seat at the dinner table, the ache of grief that made every familiar room feel colder. Friends reached out, of course, and her children called, but it was easier some days just to say she was fine, to avoid the effort of putting on a brave face. Invitations came, but she started declining them. She didn't want to be the person who brought the mood down or who couldn't hide her sadness. Time slipped by. Without meaning to, Rita stopped going to her book club. The drive felt too long, the conversations too exhausting. She skipped church a few Sundays in a row, then lost track of how long it had been. She kept herself busy at home, puzzles, gardening, a bit of TV, but somehow the days began to blend. Grocery store trips and the occasional doctor's appointment became her only outings. She told herself she was managing fine, that she liked the peace, but the truth was something altogether different was happening. Rita was growing isolated. Social isolation and loneliness are sneaky. They don't arrive all at once, but settle quietly, like a fog, until you can't remember the last time you laughed with someone or shared a meal. For older adults, this is especially common. Retirement, the loss of a spouse or close friends, children moving away, health issues that make driving or getting around harder, these changes can shrink the world little by little, even for the most outgoing person. What Rita, and millions of seniors like her, didn't realize was just how dangerous this slow, quiet loneliness could be. For years, doctors treated social isolation as a minor inconvenience, something sad but not truly harmful. But the science now tells a different story. Loneliness isn't just a feeling. It's a powerful force that affects every part of the body and mind. Chronic loneliness can be as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases the risk of premature death by 50%, raises the odds of dementia by nearly 2/3, and makes heart disease, depression, and anxiety far more likely. The reasons are both simple and profound. Human beings are wired for connection. Our bodies and brains depend on social bonds to regulate stress, maintain a healthy immune system, and keep our minds sharp. When we're cut off from others, the body reacts as if under threat. Stress hormones surge, inflammation rises, and the protective mechanisms that help us heal start to break down. We become more vulnerable, both physically and emotionally. Yet loneliness is not always visible. You can be surrounded by people, a family gathering, a busy community event, and still feel painfully alone. The difference, Rita would later learn, is between solitude and loneliness. Solitude, when chosen, can be restful and nourishing, a walk in nature, an afternoon spent reading, a quiet cup of tea in the sun. But loneliness is the ache of disconnection, the sense that you don't matter or belong. Rita's wake-up call came on a day like any other. She was reading an article online about health risks for seniors and saw a simple question: how many meaningful conversations do you have in a week? Not chit-chat or small talk, but real, genuine exchanges, sharing stories, confiding worries, laughing over memories. She counted on her fingers. The answer surprised her. Not even two. Suddenly, she understood. She was in the danger zone, more isolated than she'd ever realized. It wasn't easy, but Rita decided something needed to change. She started small. She challenged herself to connect with just one new person each month, not for romance or to fill the hole left by her husband, but to rediscover the joy of companionship. She volunteered at a local literacy center, helping adults learn to read. She joined a hiking group for seniors, where the walks were gentle and the conversations unhurried. At her church, she became a mentor to young mothers, offering the wisdom she'd gathered through decades of raising her children. Technology, once an enemy, became an unexpected friend. Rita learned to use her smartphone to video call her grandchildren across the country. She joined online support groups for widows and found community in the most unlikely of places. She discovered a neighborhood gardening app, where she traded tips about tomatoes with people half her age and even arranged a few in-person meetups. The real breakthrough, though, came when Rita opened her heart to connections across generations. She started babysitting for her neighbors' grandkids, reading picture books, and playing board games. She found that sharing stories and skills with young people gave her a sense of purpose she'd been missing. The laughter and chaos of little ones filled her home with a new kind of joy, and suddenly her calendar, once blank, was dotted with invitations, meetings, and plans. 2 years after her darkest days, Rita was a changed woman. Her doctor noticed the difference at her annual checkup. Her blood pressure was lower, her sleep more restful, her mind sharper. Rita herself felt it every morning when she woke you, looking forward to the day, instead of dreading its emptiness. Her social calendar was so full she sometimes had to schedule quiet time for herself, just to catch her breath. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Rita's story is a powerful reminder that social connection is as essential to healthy aging as exercise or good nutrition. And for seniors, it's not always easy. Mobility issues, the loss of loved ones, distance from family, or even unfamiliarity with technology can all get in the way. But just as the risk creeps in quietly, so too can the solutions. One small step, one new connection at a time. If you're reading this and recognizing a little of yourself in Rita, know that you're not alone. There are so many ways to begin rebuilding the ties that matter. Start with a simple check-in. How many real conversations have you had this week? If the answer is low, make a plan to reach out, call an old friend, say yes to a neighbor's invitation, or try a new activity in your community. Consider volunteering, joining a class, or offering to share your experience with others who might benefit from your wisdom. And if getting out isn't easy, remember that technology can be a bridge, connecting you to friends and family far and wide. Above all, don't underestimate the power of small acts. A shared story, a smile, an offer to help. These are the building blocks of connection, and they can transform not just your days, but your health and well-being in ways science is only beginning to understand. As Rita discovered, there's a profound difference between being alone and being lonely. The first can be a blessing, the second, a warning sign. But with a little courage and intention, it's never too late to rediscover the joy of belonging, the comfort of friendship, and the healing power of connection. And in the end, that might be the very thing that adds years, not just to your life, but to your happiness. 4. Poor nutrition leading to chronic inflammation. David had always thought of himself as a healthy eater. Raised in the Midwest, he grew up on home-cooked meals, with his mother's hearty stews, plenty of vegetables from their garden, and the occasional treat of homemade pie. As the decades passed, he did his best to follow the advice he'd gathered over a lifetime. Choose whole grains over white bread, opt for low-fat options, and, of course, start every morning with a glass of orange juice. When he retired, David took pride in managing his meals. He wanted to stay strong and independent well into his 70s and beyond. At 74, David still stuck to his routine. Breakfast was always whole wheat toast with a bit of jam and a tall glass of orange juice. Sometimes he'd throw in low-fat yogurt, believing it was the healthiest way to start the day. For snacks, he favored whole grain crackers or the occasional granola bar. He cooked most of his meals using vegetable oil. He'd long ago been told that butter and animal fats were dangerous for the heart. At dinner, he tried to avoid anything too heavy or fatty, swapping out red meats for what he thought were safer choices. But over time, David noticed changes he couldn't ignore. He began feeling tired, even after what seemed like a full night's sleep. Some days, his mind felt foggy, especially in the afternoon. His joints ached more than they used to, making it harder to get up from his chair or bend down to tie his shoes. Small cuts on his hands and arms seemed to linger for weeks before healing. He became irritable and anxious, worrying about his health even though he tried so hard to do everything right. When his doctor ordered routine blood work, the results surprised them both. David's inflammatory markers were high, especially his C-reactive protein and HbA1c, which suggested his blood sugar was creeping toward a pre-diabetic range. His cholesterol wasn't terrible, but his doctor was concerned about the pattern. "You're aging faster than you should be," she told him. "There's chronic inflammation in your system. It's not just wear and tear, it's your body's way of telling you something needs to change." David was confused. Hadn't he done everything right? He ate healthy foods, exercised, avoided smoking, and rarely drank alcohol. But as his doctor explained, the nutrition advice many of his generation grew up with, low fat, lots of grains, fruit juice every morning, was not just outdated, but downright dangerous for someone over 60. It turns out that as we age, our bodies process food very differently from when we were young. After 60, metabolism slows, insulin sensitivity drops, and the body's ability to handle sugars and starches, once easily burned off by active muscles, diminishes dramatically. What might have been a fine breakfast at 40 could become a daily source of inflammation at 70. The toast David loved, though whole wheat, still spiked his blood sugar much higher than he realized. That glass of orange juice delivered a hit of fructose that his liver, less efficient with age, struggled to process. Low-fat yogurt was often packed with hidden sugars, and those heart-healthy vegetable oils were loaded with omega-6 fats, which fuel inflammation in the body. Even his beloved granola bars and crackers, marketed as wholesome, were sending his blood sugar on a roller coaster, keeping his body in a near-constant state of stress. This chronic, low-grade inflammation is the invisible enemy of healthy aging. Unlike the swelling from an injury or infection, painful but temporary, chronic inflammation simmers beneath the surface. It quietly damages blood vessels, joints, and brain cells. It's the underlying cause of so many diseases that afflict older adults: heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's, and even some cancers. And the foods we eat every single day are often the most powerful triggers. For David, the wake-up call was a blessing in disguise. With the support of his doctor, he began to rethink everything he knew about food. She introduced him to what she called a senior-specific Mediterranean approach, not a fad diet, but a way of eating that works with the aging body, not against it. The focus was on anti-inflammatory foods, plenty of leafy greens and colorful vegetables, moderate amounts of berries and low-sugar fruits, healthy fats like olive oil and avocado, wild-caught fish, eggs, nuts, and seeds. The biggest shift was in cutting back on sugars and refined carbohydrates, avoiding processed foods, and swapping out vegetable oils for olive oil or coconut oil. Breakfast became an adventure in variety and balance. Instead of toast and juice, David learned to enjoy eggs cooked in olive oil, sautéed spinach, and half an avocado. Sometimes he'd have Greek yogurt, full-fat, plain, and topped with berries and a sprinkle of cinnamon. For lunch, he discovered how satisfying a big salad could be, especially when he added grilled salmon, a handful of walnuts, and a light vinaigrette. Dinner was moved earlier in the day, when his body's insulin sensitivity was higher. Instead of big, late-night meals, he chose something simple: roasted chicken, steamed vegetables, maybe a sweet potato. David also became a student of spices. His doctor explained how turmeric paired with black pepper, or ginger with cinnamon, could dramatically lower inflammation and add flavor to almost any dish. He grew more adventurous in the kitchen, even trying a few new recipes with his grandkids, who were excited to cook alongside Grandpa. He learned, too, to be careful with supplements. The market was flooded with anti-inflammatory pills and powders, but most had little scientific support, and some were poorly absorbed by older bodies. Instead, he focused on what his doctor called the Big Three: a high-quality omega-3 from fish oil or algae, vitamin D for immune and bone health, and magnesium to support muscles and nerves. The transformation wasn't immediate, but week by week, David noticed the fog lifting. His joints hurt less. He woke up with more energy, ready to tackle the day. The cuts on his hands healed faster, and even his mood seemed steadier, less anxious. At his next checkup, his blood work had improved dramatically. Inflammatory markers were down, blood sugar was stable, and his cholesterol numbers looked better than they had in years. Most importantly, David realized that aging didn't have to mean decline. His body, given the right support, could heal and renew itself. And he found a new sense of empowerment in knowing that each meal was a chance to invest in his future, one bite, one choice at a time. If you recognize parts of your own story in David's, take heart. It's never too late to make a change. Start by taking a close look at your daily habits. What's really in your breakfast? Are there hidden sugars in your snacks? What kinds of fats do you use for cooking? Consider adding more vegetables to your plate, swapping sugary drinks for water or herbal tea, and embracing the rich flavors of spices and herbs. Most of all, don't be afraid to ask for help. Talk with your doctor about blood work and nutrition, and don't get discouraged if it takes time to see results. Every step, every better choice, moves you toward a healthier, more vibrant life. David's story is a testament to the remarkable resilience of the human body, even as the years march on. With knowledge, support, and a willingness to adapt, we can trade pain and fatigue for energy and joy, turning mealtime into a daily act of self-care and hope. And in doing so, we give ourselves the best chance to enjoy many more years of laughter, connection, and new memories, shared with those we love. 5. Chronic stress and anxiety. Nancy had always been a planner. She believed in being prepared for anything life might throw her way. Through decades of raising children, managing a household, and juggling a demanding career, she had learned the value of having a plan for every situation. Now retired at 69, Nancy still held tightly to this habit. She kept detailed lists, arranged contingency plans for every eventuality, and researched every possible health concern and financial risk. In her mind, this constant vigilance was not worry, it was wisdom. It was the way to keep her family safe and herself secure. But what Nancy didn't realize was how quietly, slowly, that very vigilance was wearing her down. When Nancy went for her annual physical, she expected the usual pep talk and perhaps a few suggestions for staying active. Instead, her doctor looked at her with concern. "Nancy, your cortisol levels are dangerously high. Your blood pressure is elevated, and your immune system is showing signs of chronic stress." The words felt like a blow. Nancy was shocked. She wasn't living a stressful life, at least not in the obvious ways. She was retired, financially stable, and surrounded by loving family and friends. So how could she be so overwhelmed? What Nancy's doctor explained that day was a truth many older adults face but few fully understand. Chronic, low-level stress and anxiety can be far more damaging than the dramatic crises we imagine. It's the kind of stress that builds up over years and decades, quietly attacking the body and mind, long before we even notice its presence. As we age, our ability to bounce back from stress diminishes. The hormone cortisol, which helps our bodies respond to immediate danger, starts to stick around longer than it should. Instead of turning off once the threat passes, it lingers, triggering inflammation, damaging cells, and disrupting nearly every system in the body. Chronic stress accelerates the aging process at a cellular level, weakens the immune system, and even impairs memory and cognitive function. Nancy came to understand what her doctor called the senior stress paradox. With age comes wisdom and resilience, but also a lifetime of accumulated losses, regrets, and worries that can overwhelm even the strongest among us. Nancy's stress fell into 4 main categories that many seniors share. First was future-focused anxiety, the constant worry about her health, her husband's health, their finances, and fears of becoming a burden to their children. These thoughts replayed in her mind like a broken record, creating a cycle of tension she couldn't easily break. Second was past-focused stress, regrets about decisions she'd made, opportunities missed, and old resentments that simmered beneath the surface. Memories of relationships that ended badly or mistakes she wished she could undo haunted her, making it difficult to fully embrace the present. Third was caregiver stress. Nancy cared for her 94-year-old mother, a responsibility she loved, but that came with exhaustion, guilt, and constant worry about her own children's struggles. She felt pulled in every direction, trapped between competing demands and expectations. Fourth was loss-related stress, the grief not only for those who had passed away but also for her fading independence, diminished physical abilities, and a sense of purpose that sometimes felt lost in the shuffle. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. This chronic stress wasn't just exhausting, it was dangerous. Nancy's elevated cortisol was causing damage that would increase her risk for heart disease, stroke, and a host of other health problems if left unaddressed. But the most remarkable part of Nancy's journey was how she learned to reclaim her peace and health. Her transformation began with a simple but profound shift, learning to distinguish between what she could control and what she could only influence. She created two lists, one of things fully within her control, like her daily habits and responses to situations, and another of things she could influence but not control, like her family's choices or the outcome of future events. This mindset allowed her to stop wasting energy on worries she couldn't change and focus instead on actions that nurtured her well-being. Nancy also embraced mindfulness techniques adapted for seniors, practices that acknowledged her worries with kindness rather than judgment and gently redirected her attention away from endless mental rehearsals of what-if scenarios. Instead of trying to clear her mind completely, she practiced what her counselor called loving awareness, accepting anxious thoughts without feeding them more power. She adopted what she called a legacy perspective. Instead of asking, "What if something bad happens?" Nancy started asking, "How do I want to be remembered?" This shift helped her move from fear-based thinking to living with purpose, focusing on meaningful activities and relationships that brought joy and fulfillment. Nancy found community and support in a senior stress-sharing group where others understood the unique challenges she faced. Sharing her fears openly diminished their hold on her and fostered a sense of belonging and hope. Physical activity became a vital part of her stress management. Gentle yoga, daily walks, meditation, therapeutic gardening, and deep breathing exercises helped her release tension in both body and mind. These activities were easy to fit into her day and gave her a renewed sense of control and calm. Importantly, Nancy learned to recognize the warning signs when stress became dangerous. Persistent insomnia, loss of appetite, social withdrawal, inability to enjoy once-loved activities, and physical symptoms like chest pain or severe headaches. Recognizing these signs early allowed her to seek help before the situation worsened. Within 6 months, Nancy's cortisol levels normalized. Her blood pressure dropped to healthier ranges, her sleep improved dramatically, and she began to radiate a calm confidence that her family and friends noticed immediately. Nancy's story is a testament to the power of intentional living and self-care, even in the face of decades of accumulated stress. It reminds us that it's never too late to rewrite our relationship with worry and anxiety. If you find yourself nodding along with Nancy's experiences, know that you're not alone. Chronic stress is a silent epidemic among seniors, but there are practical steps you can take to reclaim peace. Start by noticing your stress patterns. What worries seem to consume your thoughts? Can you list what's within your control and what isn't? Try setting aside a few minutes each day for mindfulness or deep breathing. Reach out to others, whether through community groups, faith organizations, or support networks, to share your experiences. Remember, managing stress isn't about erasing every concern. It's about learning to live with uncertainty while focusing on what nourishes your spirit and body. Nancy's journey shows that with patience, support, and the right strategies, we can break free from the grip of chronic stress and embrace the golden years with grace, strength, and joy. And that peace, above all else, is a gift worth seeking every day. As we've seen through the journeys of Sandra, Carl, Rita, David, and Nancy, the choices we make every day, sometimes small and simple, have the power to shape our health, happiness, and how many precious years we get to spend with those we love. It's never too late to take control, to break free from habits that hold us back, and to embrace a life filled with movement, rest, connection, nourishment, and peace of mind. Remember, aging doesn't have to mean giving up or slowing down. Instead, it can be a time of renewed strength, clearer thinking, and deeper relationships. The body's ability to heal and regenerate is remarkable, even in your 70s, 80s, and beyond. Every positive change you make today sets the stage for a brighter tomorrow. So ask yourself, which of these 5 habits hits closest to home? What's one small step you're ready to take now to start living better? Whether it's standing up more often, prioritizing restful sleep, reaching out to a friend, changing your diet, or managing stress with kindness, you have the power to rewrite your story. If this video opened your eyes or inspired you, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Tell me what resonated most, what challenges you face, or what you're committed to changing. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you found value in this message, please like this video, share it with someone you care about, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real, practical advice to help you thrive after 60. Together, let's make these years the best years of our lives. Your healthiest, happiest days are still ahead. Let's walk this journey together.